Hello, once again I'm Cosmic, and welcome to indie puzzle title Wayward Manor, developed by the Odd Gentlemen, who are well known for their debut title The Misadventures of P.B. Winterbottom. The story of Wayward Manor comes from best-selling author Neil Gaiman, and the game itself is published by Moonshark. So set in a 1920s Victorian Gothic estate, Wayward Manor places you in the role of a recently awoken ghost. The house itself is a sentient being voiced by Gaiman himself, who tells you about how horrific its new occupants are and how you are now tasked with scaring them away as quickly and spookily as possible. Now, in terms of gameplay, Wayward Manor comprises of levels. There are 5 levels per chapter and 5 chapters in all. The sad thing is, as puzzle games go, Wayward Manor just doesn't hit the mark in any respect. Levels are just far too easy and can barely even be described as puzzles. All you end up doing is clicking the various objects in the room at the right time to scare whichever family member is in that room. The more scares you accumulate, the more clickable objects become available to you. The major issue with Wayward Manor is inherent in its game design. Any good puzzler across the board, whether an indie title or not, has one major game design element in common: the progression of mechanics. The whole point of puzzlers is to take a mechanic and, as the game progresses, add to it. Introduce new elements to that mechanic and introduce new difficulty. Sadly, Wayward simply doesn't, and the entire game is little more than a pointless point and click, seemingly unsure of what it actually wants to be. One thing that irks me in particular is that in a game about haunting the inhabitants of a mansion, the utter lack of interactivity and, dare I say, creativity in terms of its gameplay shocks me the most. As a ghost, I want to be able to do more than shake a suit of armour just by clicking it. The entire game feels like a poor iOS title rather than an indie PC game. On top of its lacking and ultimately repetitive gameplay, Wayward sadly suffers in the graphical department too. I was expecting more from both the Odd Gentleman and Neil Gaiman in this regard. Both the visuals and the soundtrack lack any real depth. There's just no soul in the game's characters, no atmosphere in the soundtrack. Graphically, the game also suffers from an array of bugs and glaring oversights simply which I cannot forgive. One such oversight is the completion of a level when you click the final skull and all the furniture begins to spin around the room. Everything just clips right through all the walls. It really does destroy what little immersion the game actually produced. Sadly, the biggest disappointment for me with Wayward Manor was the story. I thought, at least with Neil Gaiman on board, at the very least there would have been a good story. After all, this is the author that brought us things like Coraline. However, like the rest of the game, the story is just lacking in every respect. There's no depth, no character, no life to it, thus ultimately it's just bland and disappointing. The whole story feels like it's tacked on just to give you purpose to the endless clicking of objects. Overall, Wayward Manor as an idea had tons of potential, but in practice as an indie game simply did not amount to any of it. The whole game oozes rushed, underdeveloped ideas and mechanics. Its easy difficulty and lack of content combined with a weak, soulless story leaves me with an utter feeling of disappointment and a wish that they had taken their time and expanded on what they had. And that's Wayward Manor. Thank you so much for watching. Do like, subscribe and leave a comment, and I will see you next time.